Oh, fuck me.
I'm tuning in.
Why is Brio muted? I'm gonna wait till Brio mutes. Bye-bye.
Go! Immediately be like, why is Twilight here?
Are Nature and Red Mage supposed to be
One
here?
second.
Yeah, we're here. Why is Brio... What the hell?
What?
Why did Brio leave?
Okay.
Why is... I don't really know exactly what we're talking about. Oh, there's a really bad echo.
Hold on. Shush.
Yep. Hello?
Try talking.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It's
Hello?
kinda... It's kinda still there. No, it's fine.
Good now?
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah.
Oh, because Brio's mic sucks. I don't know...
Is it?
What?
No, it's not. It's
Your mic's okay.
very sensitive, and also with the headphones, picks up the sound, so that's why.
I don't know what exactly we're talking about here, but if this is a staff meeting, why is Twilight here if he's already stepped?
Because this has to do with a lot of... It's not a staff meeting. I don't think Nico or Red Mage are supposed to be here, or at least I didn't think that was the plan, so...
What?
Odds said that he would have liked more people to be here.
Okay, that's valid.
I think it's okay if they're here. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna go. But,
Just like for the most part, it doesn't directly involve you, Red Mage, and Nico.
Sure.
For the most part, not.
Yeah.
There are some points that include them, but it's less so about, like, at the end of the day, I don't think that Red Mage and Nico did anything wrong in this case, so they can be here. My main concern is just that people start, like, it's just that there's too many people talking at once, but...
Sure, that makes sense. There's a lot of people in here.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we'll get started. So I have kind of a big document here of kind of like all the points I want to go over. So they're kind of ordered by like point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as like main points, and then they have a bunch of sub points under them. So I'm just kind of like gonna go through each, like, you know, one by one, and then if you guys have questions about anything or want clarification or whatever, you can interject and ask them. However, just off the bat, I just kind of want to clarify something because I'm not entirely sure if everybody is on the same page in regards to this, as far as like the admin team is concerned. Brio, what do you think our kind of main issue here is?
Okay, so sorry to interject. I didn't want to cut you off before, but how many points are we?
There are 6. Some of them are bigger than others. Most of like the kind of sub points that I'm talking about are just kind of like brief descriptions of like the events as we saw them, or as we currently see them. So I imagine that many of these points will not really have a lot to ask questions about.
Okay, so it's just the points are just for, you know, just trying to fully understand everything.
Yep, a lot of these points are kind of just context. There's not...
Okay.
I tried to... Obviously, some points, or some of the major points, do involve a little bit of conjecture, so that's kind of the points that I expect to have the most questions and clarification and whatnot. But beyond that, I tried to stick to just what the facts are and how we feel about those, so...
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that. And then, yeah, my question to you is basically, like, what do you think our kind of main concern here is?
Well, I guess the main concern is just how certain decisions were made in regards to just like overall a decision in the server in regards to say promotions or guys, and you just feel that you know, some of the higher ups didn't handle them in a way that you felt was favorable. Mostly concentrating on whales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a pretty accurate way of putting it, I think. So yeah, I guess in that case, I'll just get started. The first, so it's kind of divided into two kind of ways, I guess. The first 3 points are mostly just talking about like stuff that happened, and then points like 4 through 6 are more so about whales, more specifically.
Okay.
Of course, you, Brio, are involved in some of this. However, I think that, or at least our current position on things, is just that we think that you made a couple of mistakes, but we do not believe that you had any intention of anything bad happening. We think that you just acted in what you thought was good for the server and just made some errors in judgment. So yeah, so point number 1, the kind of like header of each point is like a little bit, it catches your attention, but the actual subpoints are the pieces that actually matter to talk about. So point number 1 is the handling of Nico's promotion was poor and undemocratic. So the first point in that is that Brio, likely out of naivete, wanted to bring up a new SHRL despite Wales and Red Mage stating in explicit terms that they didn't need one. And then the subpoints for that one are Brio justifies this with Iddy's comment and general sentiment about the lack of upper staff mobility. This is something that has been discussed before. It is worth noting that the last time such a comment was made was when we were complaining about Wales, after which he was promoted to admin in order to open up an SHRL slot. This is kind of, I'm going to ask clarification of you on that one. Was that kind of the idea behind promoting Wales?
It's part of the reason, yes. It's not the biggest reason. That was just one of them.
If it's easy to say, what was kind of the big reason?
Yeah, there wasn't really like a big reason. It was really just a couple of other, just like in general. You know, one of the reasons was, as you said, you know, to get you know, some upper mobility going, get some newer faces. You know, Wales' overall activity, you know, was a lot lower. You know, we like to, or at least me personally, I like to, you know, when the time is like appropriate, you know, that we bring, you know, just like newer people in that have, you know, some fresh ideas, have still like a lot of activity in regards to both, you know, still doing the VRL stuff like feedbacking and whatnot. And so, you know, giving Wales a more administrative, you know, position just kind of, at least for me, I felt, you know, would just allow to just open up, you know, another HO or HRO position, as you were saying. But I do want to comment, and Red Mage, you feel free to.
I have a. I don't know.
Correct me on this.
Yeah, you just go. I have a question after this.
Okay. In regards to the whole, you know, SHRO promotion, in regards to Nico, this was not something that I personally pushed for at the time that we were promoting another HRL. This was brought up after we had decided.
From Darkin.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to say why you're still thinking something opposite.
Okay, yeah. So after kind of like talking to Darkin about a lot of stuff, because like our original position, as you kind of heard from us, like when Iddy and I were DMing with you, that our original position is that we thought that, like, you know, Wales forced a vote to get his friend promoted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the current kind of position, this is kind of one of the later points, but that's fine. We can jump around a little bit. Actually, this is basically the very next thing that's written. So
well, I still have a question for what you said earlier.
Yeah, before we do that, yeah.
You mentioned we wanted to bring in an SHRL. Iddy, did you not want an SHRL to come up?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
And didn't you say 2 times that we needed an MVHR, or you didn't want an MVHRL as well?
I said one time.
You said it 2 times. Once in War Room and once in BC with me, Brio, and Wales.
Oh, I don't remember that. I just remember just typing it, but
Well, you
I
said
might
it twice, so I don't know why you bring up the point of me saying I don't want a Shatters HRL when Iddy said the exact same thing.
I'm just basing this off of what Darkin told me.
Well, Darkin must not have. Darkin wasn't even in the BC, and Darkin must be misinformed.
But yeah, so thank you for the clarification on that. And then this resulted in confusion about who initiated the vote, providing even more flack against Wales, despite not being 100% warranted in this case. So this is kind of the piece that you were saying, Brio, about like, what's our thing now. And then, of course, Red Mage, you can correct me on this, but you decided that since Odds was being promoted, it may be an alright time for a new SHRL, right?
That's correct.
Cool. And then Wales, as he is known to do, brings the discussion of the new SHRL up to admin chat, up a channel, and this robbed both Iddy and Red Mage from discussion about someone who was to be promoted to their position.
Okay, here's well.
I believe there was discussion in War Room, but Bria, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, there was a brief discussion, but
Not
primarily
not even brief, because it hadn't been discussed for well over a month.
If you want, I can try and just go back briefly at that time to just verify exactly the timeline. If
It
you
was
want me to do
I
that.
remember the timeline. It was the middle of July when the Shatters HRL discussion
Oh,
started,
no,
and we've
no.
been talking about that for well over a month.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that. I mean just like what started the vote to bring in another SHRL. But it was pretty much like the same day that it happened, and we said that okay, so admins primarily are in charge of HRL promotions. It is something that is decided between them first, and we bring it then to the HRLs afterward to get their overall thoughts on it, and then afterwards we move on from there. That's how it goes. That's how it's always gone. And so we brought it up to admin chat, we voted on it, and then we brought it down, and we said, okay, the majority voted for Nico, and then that's when we had the discussion. And in regards to, it is a democracy vote, the vote was still a majority for Nico, and thus we promoted Nico.
Yes. So the kind of part that I'm a little bit confused on, and this was kind of like, this is kind of behind, because originally Iddy was kind of a bit apprehensive about the idea of maybe stepping, but the thing that caused him to kind of be like, yeah, I'm willing to do that, was that previously when it came to discussions of Twilight or myself potentially being promoted, way back when in late July when those discussions were first started, and then like a little bit later on, but mostly just the first time, it seems that there was a lot of discussion between both the VRLs and the HRLs regarding Twilight and myself. It seems that both Iddy and Red Mage, both as HRLs, got the opportunity to say their piece on it before it was kind of like directly considered in terms of the bureaucratic side of things doing the actual voting. Whereas on Nico's end, it seemed more like Iddy was not aware that Nico was even a candidate until he was already voted.
That's not true. It was posted
That's
in
not
War
true.
Room when Nico reached out for HRL, and it was posted in War Room and talked about.
It was a while ago. It was right around the same time that
Nico was
the timeline that it was
Yeah.
around the same time that everyone else asked.
even when like Twilight and you and I think Odd was also up for discussion too. Nico was brought up back then as well.
Yep.
Mhm.
I believe it was in a VC. At first,
It's in War
but
Room.
yes.
I don't know if it was in VC first, but there is a screenshot in War Room of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm partially basing this off of that, kind of that it seemed, at least, I mean, like, Iddy, obviously, you can, speak your piece on this, but, at least Iddy seemed to have kind of the same level of knowledge that the VRLs did, and, like, the last time the VRLs had heard of it was when or Red Mage, you specifically said Nico will never be HRL ever. That was the last time any of the VRLs had heard of it, and it seems that that was what Iddy's thought on it was. Iddy, if you would like to kind of...
Yeah, I mean, you kind of explained it there. That's like the information I had. I don't remember seeing a discussion in Worm about it, but I might be like blind.
I mean,
Okay, so here's
I can show you
sorry,
in
go
War
ahead.
Room. You might have just missed it, and I can tell you why I said no to Nico if you want me to tell you.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Sounds sure.
Nico, when I saw all the HRLs being considered, which is you, Twilight, you guys are kind of argumentative. Okay, I'm not gonna mince words, but that's fine. Wales had a different opinion than me. He thought that meant you weren't qualified for HRL. He thought it was bad. I thought it was fine. when I saw that, and saw you guys were still being considered. Even with that, I was like, Nico is mostly the same. It's not that huge a deal. So I thought that's not going to be taken into consideration because I thought Nico was a bit more toxic. I am friends with Nico, so I know more sides to him. He's a bit more, how do I say, not, you know, when you're friends with someone, they're gonna be mean to you, right? He's mean to me sometimes, so I mean, like, I know more sides of him, so I didn't think he would have the professionalism to not be rude to people, and then he denied HRL multiple times in the past, so I had no idea he had any drive for HRL in the first place until he reached out to, I don't remember which admin it was. So when he reached out,
Wales. I found that conversation.
when he reached out to Wales, I realized he had a will to try, so I mean, I guess I was wrong when I said he was never gonna become HRL.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, that's pretty much all for that kind of first point. Was that Itty had still thought that Nico had no chance of becoming HRL, and when the vote happened, he didn't really get the chance to speak his piece on, because from Itty's point of view, like, he wasn't entirely sure about Nico's thing because he hadn't really interacted with Nico much. So he asked me, and I sent him the, that one discussion that was had in VRL chat, and Itty thought that was like really, really bad, which he brought up in War Room, that he thought that was like.
And I replied in War Room, yeah.
Yeah. And then Itty felt like his legitimate concerns were just kind of being entirely ignored. The last thing that Wales said, kind of after Itty had kind of been done speaking his piece, the last thing Wales said was basically like, well, the vote is done. There's nothing more that can happen at this point. So Itty felt that he had basically, like, his concerns had not been heard before deciding to promote Nico.
I don't know what Wales meant by that. I don't know why he's not even here to defend himself, so I don't know what he meant by that, so I can't say anything. Brio already explained it. Brio already explained it. If it's already voted on, that's when the discussion comes in. I assume Wales was just saying that doesn't change what the vote would be. I'm assuming he's saying the votes wouldn't change with that argument, but he's not here, so.
Yes, I assume that's what he meant by that too. I just mean that Itty found it very dismissive of his, like, kind of, because he was the biggest dissenter against Nico, so he felt that he was just not being heard on that.
Yeah, I wish this was in discussions in War Room like 2 weeks ago. I wish all this would have came up way before any promotion happened.
What do you mean by all of this exactly?
This entire VC we're in, and everyone's upset about all this stuff that we're having to clarify after the fact instead of.
That's a different point. That's a different point. No, that's a different point.
What do you mean?
Like we'll get to that basically.
Sure.
Alright, so that's basically the entirety of point one, is basically just how Itty feels about, like, the way the promotion was handled. And then number two, this is kind of a little bit more about Brio, but this is just kind of like providing context for why our current position is kind of a little bit more pessimistic, which is that the aftermath of the promotion situation showed that Brio was not really interested in us sticking around. From Brio's POV, this was at the time, Brio, of course you can correct me on this, our primary concern was that Twilight was not promoted. Would you say this is a good way of characterizing it?
Well, okay, so, I mean, yeah, if we want to talk about at the time, then, yes, that was, yeah, so, yeah, at the time, yes, that is what my initial thought was. However, I want to come in and correct you there. I apologize if that I made you guys feel like I was giving up on you. I wasn't trying to give up on you. The fact that I even had a conversation with you was me trying to, you know, push you to stay or to reconsider. And I gave you, you know, everyone that I talked to, I gave you guys, you know, the absolute full transparency of what went down. Afterwards, you guys, you know, still felt that you guys wanted to step. So at that point, I'm not sure what more you like wanted me to do to try to get you guys to stay, but I believe I did all I could at that moment.
Okay, so that's a point where, I mean, you kind of like briefly summarized kind of the whole thing, like that point, so I'm not gonna like just read what you just said. But from our point of view, you were not transparent whatsoever. I think that, like, I mean, obviously, like, Itty, Twilight, Odds, you can probably all back me up on this. But, like, after we all got demoted, like, after that whole discussion, that was basically going to be the end of it. Until Darkin, like, undemoted all of us and added us to a VC, or to a group chat. So that would have been the end of it. And there's, like, details in here that, like, only came up because Darkin was basically like, okay, I'm gonna leak the admin chat or whatever. And it was stuff that is information that you had withheld from us.
Okay, which is?
Well, one of the pieces of information, this kind of comes up later. You claimed the vote was 2-0 when it, or 2-1 when it never was. The vote was 2-0, and then you changed your vote to a yes vote, making it 3-0.
No, I stood, okay. The vote was 2-1, but regardless of if I changed my vote or not, the vote wouldn't have changed. So it does,
Yeah.
I don't think it particularly matters whether or not I said, like, me saying, all right, fine, it could potentially just mean I said yes. I just meant, okay, I lost the majority vote. It is what it is. There's a very big difference.
This is kind of a later point, but I guess I may as well bring it up now.
And also, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. The part about undemoting thing, I undemoted you guys. He told me, he said, hey, hold your horses. I'm going to talk to them, reverse all the role changes. Because I hadn't gotten through everybody quite yet.
Mhm.
So he came, like, pretty much, like, right in the middle of it. So
Yeah, it's not really relevant specifically who did the undemoting. Just,
Okay.
he was the one that prompted it. But yeah, since you bring up kind of like the vote, kind of one of our main points regarding the vote is that, I mean, I kind of want your opinion on this. Did you think that there was any reality in which Nico doesn't win the vote?
I mean, that's kind of a tough question to say. I'm not really sure. All I know is, I voted and I discussed my points as best as I could, trying to, address, everything. And, ultimately, after all of that, at least to me, it was one of those things where it's just like, okay, there's not anything else that I can try to bring up that would flip anyone's vote. So I would say probably not. However, I don't think that the fact that I may or may not. Oh, okay, so I guess I'll say that I tried to kind of get to like reconsider more things, perhaps if they miss some things. But at the end, if Fallout is discussed and everything's fleshed out, at that point, then
Here, can I ask a question?
I would say no.
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask a question? What are you getting at with that question?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I mean, as I could to get to this. So basically, what I was getting at with this question is that, like, of course, the way the voting went, at least as I understand it from what Darkin has said, is that Brio, you initially brought up Twilight as kind of your preferred candidate, and then that was voted on. It was 2-1 with Wales saying no. And then Darkin like floated the idea of Elevation, but like you guys were kind of just like, whatever, we're not considering him. And then Wales brought up the vote for Nico, and then that passed. And so kind of what I'm getting at with this question is that, like, you guys have discussed me and Twilight for HRL before, and Wales has, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Wales has had a very consistent position of Twilight should not be promoted.
If you read War Room, I don't know if you've seen it, but that was not Wales's position.
Then what was Wales' position?
Wales' position was
No one should be.
No one should be demoted. And if someone was going to be demoted, specifically or promoted in reference to Twilight, is if Twilight wasn't as argumentative, he would push him through.
Okay, but to that, I have kind of a thing to add, which is that Twilight has in the past asked Wales directly what he could do to get him to reconsider, and Wales basically just said, I don't know.
I
So
need to see a
I don't
screenshot of that
think
because
that argument holds water.
in War Room, I've seen him say multiple times, and give specific examples. One of the most recent ones was in me and Twilight were having good back and forth on the Shatters callout guide, and he did that weird, I don't know how to describe it, besides SpongeBob meme, like you're acting sarcastic, it's stuff like that. That's the most recent example.
Yeah. Dwight, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm not sure what the question is, to be honest.
What do you mean?
Wait, do I have anything to add to that? Like, I don't. What am I adding to? What
I
am
don't know. Like,
answering?
do you have an opinion on that situation?
On what?
On like, I mean, were you listening to what was just said?
What, the VRL chat thing, the back and forth on the callouts?
Yeah. That
I mean,
guy.
I can say that I messaged Whale. So when he replied to that, I immediately messaged him because he had indicated in the past that he would rather I reach out the instant that I feel anything was wrong. After I told him that, in the past I was, feeling a little bit weird about the way he handled something, and I didn't feel that it was relevant at the time of feeling that way, and so I just left it alone until a situation in which that same circumstance might occur came up, and then I messaged him oh, in order to prevent this from happening again, I'd rather do it this way. And he was like, oh, why didn't you talk to me about it sooner? I was like, it wasn't relevant back then, it is now. So in this case, back to the VRL chat thing, I messaged him immediately. I can read verbatim what I said. I said, when you type stuff like this, I took a screenshot of what he said. I said, I get frustrated. I can assure you that I had absolutely no inner turmoil when I typed that list. I'm glad Red Mage reviewed the callouts. I'm glad he asked us for our input. I gave my input, and I would like for Red Mage to explain his opinions to me. When you tell me not to be so pointed, I genuinely have no clue what you mean. It feels like you just don't want me to bother talking about this, and it makes me unhappy. Red Mage then, sorry, not Red Mage, Wales then took a screenshot of what I said and said it comes off as rude and kind of demeaning. And I replied to him that a lot of his advice to me has been to not take things personally. And I said, in this instance, it feels like you're the one taking it personally, when it's not. Then he said, I wasn't the one who complained about it, that's why I brought it up. I said, well, you were the one who brought it up, so I'm responding to you. I don't know if he expects me to respond to the invisible person that I don't know about
We
here.
can talk about this for as long as we want, but in reference to the you not having any inner turmoil or whatever, I believe you 100%. Nico has the exact same issue. 80, we talked about this in War Room. I don't know if the non-HRLs or non-100% have seen it. Nico's here, he can speak for himself. I don't know, I'm pretty sure he had no inner turmoil in that message either, so I don't think this was really in consideration when considering HRLs.
And I'll piggyback off of that. And I imagine this, I don't know if this is one of your points or not, but just to reiterate, at the time, Wales, he really didn't, Wales and you Res Mage, correct me if I'm wrong again, at the time you guys didn't really want any of the HRLs, ours of the, Bureau candidates promoted because they all had their own,
Not necessarily.
respective-
That's
Okay.
not necessarily true. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't think it was necessary to promote any HRL, same as Wales.
Okay.
I wasn't opposed to HRLs, and I wasn't opposed to Nico, Twilight, or Adlumi. I thought they were all perfectly fine for HRL.
Yeah, and Red Mage, I'm finally home now, but Red Mage did say, he's fine with, whoever.
Yeah. Yep. That's something about, yeah, sorry. I don't want it to make it seem like I'm saying, negative, you were absolutely no one.
No, sure, no problem.
No one
No, you're
promote.
fine.
It's more you would, as you said, you're fine with it, but you're not all right, let's, get someone up here, very, very soon. Is that more up to what you're trying to imply?
Saying
You're not, so, you're more so, it's you're not opposed, but you're not
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right, let's get an HRL up here right now.
Yeah, but
Soon.
you were mentioning HRLs for maybe about a month. So I mean,
Yep.
when 80 changed his mind, I was like, 2 for 2 sounds good to me. Obviously, less work for me is nice. It probably help the server go faster. I won't be so delayed in voting or anything. I don't know.
Right.
Yep. Because I mean, the indication that we've always received when asking Brio about promotions is pretty much exactly that sentiment of we aren't really actively looking for someone right now, but if things change, I'll tell you, that kind of thing. All right, and then I just need to get back on on track here to exactly what I'm saying. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So it's about the kind of status of the vote and how, like, so Brio, you said earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, that Wales is not like staunchly against Twilight, right?
No, he's not staunchly against Twilight. He's not staunchly against anyone. He feels everyone that was considered is pretty much equal. And the only way that he voted and that we ended up voting on was based off of just pure seniority, overall time spent in the server, and just the pure feedback and runs done. But it was mostly on just the seniority. Everything else was in the in Wales' eyes, and Darken, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're thinking the same thing. Everything else is dead even. It's just, okay, at this point, who's been in the server the longest? Who knows how stuff works the most?
Yeah.
And that's where that came from.
Yep. I mean, I can argue however long about, like, you know, the feedbacks thing or whatever. I already, like, brought up that point to you in DMs. It's
what
not
point?
really relevant to any of this. Huh? The point was just, like, I looked at it. So Nico's done, like, 40-something feedbacks, and he's feedbacked for, like, a little over a year.
Sure.
And Twilight and I have done, like, 21 and 16, respectively, and we've been feedbacking for 3 months or so.
Yeah, well, you can't, like,
So we've done more
expect someone to
feedbacks
keep
per
up...
unit time.
You can't expect someone to keep up the same level of activity permanently, right?
No, I fully agree. That's why I'm saying that, like, it's kind of, like, it's not really a relevant point. It wasn't the most relevant point behind promoting Nico either. It's more so seniority, so. Okay, so trying to figure out where I want to go next. Oh yeah, you know, this is still kind of about the boat. So so Wales, his kind of position was like,
Sorry, I'll be right back. 1 second.
Okay. Oh wait.
Bro just left.
Yeah. SMH Brio. Hashtag demote Brio. He leaves in the middle of important discussion.
There we go.
I just got home and Yeek is down.
Good.
What?
This better be the best there. Like, get off league, bro.
Good take.
Masters tier player.
You know, if you asked me if I was ever going to be friends with Wales, I would have said no, because one of our first DMs is him inviting me to league.
Phase.
I immediately shut that guy down.
Hey, actually, Red Mage. Brio doesn't need to hear about this part because it's not like super relevant.
Oh.
This is just for clarification's sake.
Sure.
But you and Wales have private contact with Nico, right?
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah. I was wondering for clarification's sake.
Sure.
You told Nico he's getting promoted, right?
Well, he knew he was in consideration, but...
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I thought it was funny, like, you guys came online at, like, 1:30 on Saturday, and then Nico put up an RSA run, like, 20 minutes later.
Yeah, we were kind of begging him to do a round.
Yeah, no, I have zero, that's a null point. I have no issues with that.
I don't know if he
Fucking
knew or
everyone
not,
does that
but
when people are getting
if
promoted.
I was him, I'd probably know.
Yeah. I mean, literally fucking everyone does that when people are getting promoted that they know. I'm gonna go organize these points a little bit better. I'm kind of jumping around a bit more than I was originally anticipating, but that's fine.
That's what happens when you got a back and forth. That, like, it can go to points you have no idea if something's gonna come up.
I mean, at least as of right now, everything that has been brought up is something that is written down somewhere, so...
That's good.
At least personally, I'm not really expecting anything to, like, go completely off script.
Oh, you don't know I could say anything.
Alright, Brio said he's here, but he can't talk for the moment, but he says he'll convey his messages, like, through me.
Okay, great. Okay, so basically, at least from like our point of view, Wales didn't seem like he was ever going to change his mind on Twilight, because it seemed like through the interactions that he has had with Twilight, that neither of them were really willing to reach middle ground on each other. Twilight, of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it seemed that there wasn't really any particularly viable solution for getting them to get along with each other, or at least get along with each other enough for Wales to kind of reconsider Twilight. And so from our view, given the current situation between Wales and Twilight, it seems like any vote that's brought up for HRL pretty much always results in Nico getting promoted, because Wales will just always say no to Twilight in that case, and like it's unlikely that Brio's gonna change his mind in like 10 minutes or whatever, especially since he hasn't changed his mind prior to that. And then Wales is of course going to prefer Nico for the aforementioned reasons.
What aforementioned reasons?
The aforementioned reasons basically just being like seniority, that stuff. Like if we
Sure,
consider
sure. No, I got you.
yeah, like yeah, if we consider all negatives equal, which we kind of disagree on in terms of Nico, but of course you and Wales know Nico better than we do, so like you probably have a more complex understanding.
Yeah, it's like what Twilight said. He says he had no inner turmoil. I mean, I trust him, but
yeah. So yeah, like understandably, the way that Wales understands Nico, and he has more contact with Nico, so he knows him better. At that point, if everybody's equal, then he's gonna have a preference to Nico based off of like seniority and whatnot, because he thinks that everybody's negatives are about the same. And so in that case, Nico always gets promoted, right? Because even if Brio disagreed on Nico getting promoted vehemently, then the vote just ends up being 2-1 for Twilight, 2-1 for Nico, and then no one gets promoted. So you end up with a stalemate. So yeah, I kind of the broader point with that is just that Brio kind of brought the vote to happen, and that vote was always going to be Nico.
I'm not understanding where the issue is here.
The issue is that at least from how we see things, there was not really a clear front runner out of the three of us. So we feel that the decision to just kind of do a vote on it now was a little bit rushed.
I mean, it's been in talks for over a month. I don't know if I'd call that rushed, but I do somewhat agree. But Nico was a front runner based on everything he's done for the server.
But yeah, I mean, of course, Eddie, you can kind of if you have anything to speak on regarding that, then.
I guess I could go over my points on how it even happens. Okay. Where is my thingy? Okay, so the way I saw it was kind of between two people and two people only, which was Twilight and Nico. So previous points for Twilight, he roughly made 70% of the Shatters RL guide. He was seen as had a bad attitude, argumentative, blah blah blah.
I don't think we should go into that. I think that was Nico's fine with that. I don't think we should bring that up. I mean, you can if you want, but.
What do you mean?
I don't think Twilight's attitude barred him from HRL or anything, in my opinion. I'm not an admin, so I didn't vote, so.
He's just describing how he felt.
Sure.
This is how I see it. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So Twilight did most of the guide. Was told he had a bad attitude. Said he should work on it. So he then took a step back. Clearly tried. And then, in my opinion, someone who has shown a worse attitude recently came off a very long leave, was stated they wouldn't be promoted.
I already talked about that.
That person gets promoted. Yeah, I'm just describing the situation.
Yeah, okay, go.
I just did.
I don't know what you want me to say.
He's just describing what he.
I mean, like, what? Okay. Do you understand my point? Is basically what I'm trying to get at.
You didn't think Nico, you thought Nico was more argumentative, or argumentative might not be the best word, so that is a knock on Nico's, what is it, means for promotion. You thought Nico's level of inactivity was not good, or level of activity was not good. He was on leave for 6 weeks, and I'm inconsistent for saying he was never going to be promoted and then pushing for his promotion. Is that it?
Roughly, I would stress more points on, like, someone being told they should work on their attitude, and then someone, the next guy, not being told that, and then just getting shooted to promotion.
Nico was told that. Wales isn't here, but from what I heard from Wales, Nico did have a talking to.
Interesting. So, it sounds like that probably was a part of the decision,
What do you mean?
the whole attitude thing.
We can't promote an HRL if they don't know what they need to work on. If they have a bad attitude, they need to not have a bad attitude. But when it comes between two people with a bad attitude and you have to pick one, you're gonna pick one anyway. It doesn't mean they get to have that bad attitude. They still need to stop, but they just need to know.
Okay.
Okay.
It just seemed ignored to me.
Like,
What do you
Eddie,
mean?
correct me if I'm wrong on this, but just like, at least seemed like Twilight's more recent contributions to the server were like really, really big, and Nico, like his more recent activity has kind of not really been server related stuff. And so if you think that both of their attitudes are bad and should be worked on, it's kind of confusing that Nico's getting promoted over Twilight, since like he did
Here.
all of this stuff. And then
I'll let Brian, let me say something, and then you can tell me if it's correct or not. Because I don't know what the whole discussion was in admin chat, but for Twilight, his when he first started the Shatters callout guide, I understand where he's coming from when he didn't want any help, specifically from Wales. The problem is when you're very solo-minded like that, it shows that you can't really work with others very well. And the problem with the guide was it took an entire month after it's a lot of work, but for weeks, maybe not a month, like 2 or 3 weeks, it was dead silent, and the HRLs had to come and pick it up because there was no updates on it, nothing happening on it. No one knew what was going with it, and no one could even start to make their own callout guide because there was already one from Twilight that there was no communication about. I think that was taken into consideration when talking about HRL. Brio can correct me if I'm wrong.
It was... Yes and no, it wasn't a big contributor to it, but it was briefly mentioned. I wouldn't say that that was the end-all be-all of it, though, because it wasn't really...
Well, obviously not, but on this point specifically, when you're talking about the server-sided changes.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the whole guide. Okay, so I say, and wait, is this talking here? I think it might have left. I'll have to go back and verify, but at the time of like the final talks, I don't recall us mentioning anything about how Twilight had worked on it solo, and that was like not something that we thought was very great because of like the lack of communication and all the stuff that you mentioned. But we did talk about, or at least I did mention, or you're in the entire guide and whatnot. But now kind of looking back on it, and this is something that you guys were talking about, how this recent activity versus overall activity. Sure, recently at least, we can say that Twilight has done more. I will say that Nico has. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say recently, in the span of like 5 months, like if recently includes his entire length of staff here, then yes. But recently, I'm pretty sure Twilight hasn't done like any feedbacks in his past month as VRL.
Yes, I mean, Twilight, obviously you
This
can
team is
say exactly the shtick with this, but at least as far as I understand it, it's because Twilight was just absolutely tired with dealing with the server because of Wales. Is
What
that
was
a
the
good
big
Do
issue
you
with
want me to
Wales?
say that?
I mean, it just whatever your opinion is. That's like at least basically how I understand it. But
I mean, on one hand, I don't really think it's relevant whether or not I had, like, you know, towards the end of
I
my
mean,
lifespan.
I don't
as a
think it's
staff.
relevant either. But when it's brought up, the activity argument brought up, I don't think it's how it is being characterized.
This
really
was
don't
where
follow.
I was just. This is where. Well, my whole point was that basically I'm just saying that like the recent activity is great. However, we looked at overall. We didn't look at in the past X amount of months he did this or that. We just look purely at overall.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right, about the callouts guide, because I guess that's kind of like may as well, since that was brought up, may as well talk about it. Twilight, why do you think the guide took so long?
I would be happy to answer that. Let me first start by saying I'm not really sure what the issue with this was. Pretty much the entirety of this project's lifespan, and I truly mean from beginning to end, was a collaboration with IDI. I was directly inspired by IDI's work on a Moonlight guide that he made for his thing. I wanted him to help with making a very similar, if not outright the same thing for the Shatters. I input all of my call-out knowledge into that and put it in the test server that I believe several upper staff are in. It was never private information. It was being updated, semi-regularly at least. There were also, periods, potentially weeks long, where I'm just busy doing other shit and didn't really get around to updating it. And then eventually I did update it, and because of the nature of where this project was located in this server directly shared with IDI and the upper staff, I didn't go into VRL chat and ping people and be like, hey, I did it. I basically told IDI, you're good to copy it over to your version. And my assumption was that he would then take it to upper staff. And I'm not really sure what went wrong between the start of me saying like, hey, I'm working with IDI on this, and okay, it's done, IDI, go ahead and take care of it. Like it was brought to my attention, I think, by Darkin actually recently, where about the whole attitude about that project, and I really am nothing but confused about what went wrong there.
Here, I'll explain my reasoning or what I think about it. Adlumia mentioned. First, I'll ask. Adlumia mentioned during your past month or so as a server, you were more inactive because of the dealings with Wales, and it was hard to put up with him. Is that correct, or is Adlumia got that wrong?
It's neither right nor wrong. Yeah. It's the overall culmination of how I felt about the server resulted in me wanting to participate in it less, and that's really all I can say.
Sure, and when you say you were busy for a few weeks and progress had to be made on it, that's perfectly fine. The problem is, it seems like I mentioned earlier, it felt like a solo-minded mission. I wasn't really aware it was being very co-created with IDI, so that's good. But Wales had offered his help multiple times, and multiple times you have declined him, and it seems like you were completely against having people bring the guide forward. So when you were busy, people offered and wanted to bring the guide to light, but you pushed them away and waited until you were free to get it for the server, which doesn't really show.
You're right. Yeah, you are right. I left out key information and didn't explain this well. You're absolutely right. I remember now. Here's what happened with that. In terms of, so this actually goes back to the thing about when I said the reason that I had a bad attitude with Wales about something that happened earlier, and I didn't tell him about it until later. That's what this was about. With the hard mode guide that I worked on as well, I remember Wales made it sound to me like I would be sending a draft forward and it would be edited. And really what he did was immediately post it before I felt
What are you
it
talking
was
about?
ready.
Specifically, because I'm confused.
Under the Shatters guide for the Raiders, the hard mode section is written by me. This is my work.
In the guide, not the callouts guide.
Not the callouts guide,
Okay.
the normal hard mode guide, the guide for the Raiders. So this was a while ago, and at the time after he did that, I was like, oh, that's weird. Didn't really care. Then next, when he said, hey, would you like to bring the Shatters call out forwards? I was like, no, it's not ready, because my assumption was that, it's gonna be posted. I was like, it's not ready to be posted in my eyes. I still have work to do on it, so no, I don't want to bring it forward. In addition, some of my lack of being like, hey, can somebody help me with this? On one hand, I didn't feel like I needed help with it, to be honest. I'm not sure what the part of it that needed help was. And the second part is that, as far as I know, the collaboration is mandatory. The whole time I was like, okay, this is going to go through all the VRLs and HRLs as just what happens to these projects, which, it's good,
Here.
So I was like, once I'm done with my part, they'll all go through it, right? Isn't that the collaboration?
2 points. The reason it's brought up is because you had, correct me if I'm wrong, derided Wales in the past for not getting this out sooner. It's been months. We've kind of known this needs to come out, and it never came out. So you kind of derided Wales in the past for taking a long time and with the Shatters callout guide. So when you say you don't know why it needs to be done so fast, after saying that, I don't really understand. That seems like a contradiction to me. And 2, the HRLs can go through it, but we can also just help do it. And when you, I think I already said this a million times, when you push Wells out of it, you could have. It seems Wells isn't here, so I can't really say much. It seems like it's just a miscommunication, and if you could have clarified things, I don't think Wales would have posted that without your knowledge. I don't know the messages. I don't know exactly what happened. Wales isn't here to defend himself. I don't know. I'm glad we're clarifying things now, but
In terms of the hard mode guide?
yes,
Or
in terms of the hard mode guide, because you said he posted the hard mode guide, which you said was a draft, and then he posted it. You did not want it posted yet, and it just got posted. And it seemed that soured your view of Wales, and you thought he would start posting stuff of yours without going over it, without editing it. Even if it was draft, he would post it. I feel like that's just a simple miscommunication, and I think if you guys talk more, that could have been completely avoided. But he's not
2
here,
points.
and I don't have the DM, so.
Yeah, well, I do. So 2 points on that. The first is it really didn't sour my attitude on him. I'm really quite sure that
you
that
said
happened-
you just said you used that as an example as to why you didn't want his help to come help your thing,
Yes.
because you thought it would
You're
he would come and post something or mess something up.
absolutely right.
I don't see how that's
I
not a
don't
soured
s-
attitude.
Okay. I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe
Then,
I
'cause
shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't use the word soured attitude, but you didn't want to work with him.
I didn't want to send him the guide. In this case, he says, "Send me the Shattered callouts tier list you got right now in text format." I said, "No, I'm still working on it. It's not ready for posting, and there's multiple parts to it." Is essentially what I said. I just said it's not done, and I don't get why that was such an issue that I was working on it for a while.
Well, I assumed he wanted to help so it could get going faster. Did you think he was gonna? If you think if he saw the guide, he was gonna post it?
That my assumption was yes, that immediately as soon as it's in the DMs with him or War Room, it's completely out of my hands.
I think you made it abundantly clear that I don't know how clear you made it before with the Shatters guide, but it seemed in those DMs you made it abundantly clear that it was not to be posted yet. I don't know why on earth Wales would post that after you said that.
What, the hard mode guide?
The callouts guide, the one you just read off the DMs for. If you made it abundantly clear it's not ready, do not post it. I don't know why he would post that.
No, that one he did post when I was ready, because I literally did not send it to him. It was not available to him until I was like, here, it's finished.
Sorry, let me be more clear. You said you did not want to post the Shatters callouts guide to him because it wasn't finished, correct?
That's correct.
Did you think he was going to post it if you sent it to him?
Yes.
You made it in no unclear terms. You told him it wasn't ready. You still thought he was going to post it if you showed it to him?
You mean if I had said, "Hi, I'm still working on this. It's not ready," and then posted it like he
Yes,
asked?
you think he would have posted it in the Shatter server?
Not in the server, no.
And then I don't see what the issue was, why he couldn't... Well, I guess it wouldn't be posting, it would be inviting him to the guide test, right? But I don't understand why you didn't show it to him then. If you didn't think he was going to post it.
Well, I didn't understand what he would add to it, to be honest. I thought about it. I was like, I don't. What is he going to put on here that I'm not going to put on here?
Well,
I'm,
if you already knew HL's going to go over it in the end anyway, I don't understand what's wrong with him coming and helping put stuff on significantly earlier. And then if it is significantly earlier, it's not even in War Room yet, so you can still discuss it. Even after it's in War Room, it'll be posted and you can still discuss it afterward.
I would use the same logic to say, if he's going to have to go over it, why bother putting his foot in early? Why not let me put all my pieces on the table?
Because he
and
saw
then have
it was...
you arrange them as you like.
For two reasons. Because he saw it was taking a while, and because you've complained in the past... I don't know if complained is the right word. You mentioned in the past the Shadows Gauntlet was taking forever and he wanted to show support and help, right, and make it go quicker. Like an HRL should do.
Right. So, perhaps this is a personal misconception, but there's no circumstance where I've thought that whales being involved would make things go faster. I will be brutally honest. I believe the consensus among my group certainly is that he makes everything slower.
Yes.
In order
can
to...
Can I just add kind of my little thing about the skill guide?
Sure, yeah, I mean, this is a perfect time to...
Yeah. So, about the whole kind of, like, working with whales makes things slower thing, this, of course, was the time scale of this compared to the callouts guide was shorter. When I worked on my skull drag guide, my first draft of it was not particularly good for, like, several reasons. And so, I made a container server for it, just like with the callouts guide. Sent it to you guys. Most of you joined. Wales didn't. He wanted me to send it to him through DMs because he didn't want to just like join random servers. Perfectly fair. So I sent the first draft to him. And we had this back and forth that lasted like a little over 20 minutes. And Wales was overall very unclear about specifically what he wanted me to do with the guide. He was basically just saying like, these are the things that, or his broader point was pretty much just like, I think that you shouldn't mention anything that's already in like the main guide, and I told him, I said, that's like a lot of what the guide is, and I think it's important information to share in here, so they don't have to like bounce around for it, and I think I go into a little bit more in depth here. And then basically Wales and I basically just had this big back and forth about that took like 20 minutes, and it took way longer than I needed to, because really all Wales needed to say was like, look, these are the parts of the guide I think are good, these are the parts of the guide I think are bad, I think you should change this, whatever. And then, like, that's all he needs to say, and I can just get back to the lab and work on that, send him another draft. But instead we had this big back and forth, and then I asked Brio for help, because I was like, hey, I don't think this conversation is going anywhere. To me, it sounds like Wales kind of wants to just, like, dismantle my guide. Can you help me out here? And Brio basically told me, yeah, I think there's just like some miscommunication on here. I want you to like reconvene with Wales on this. So
I don't know how much was brought up, but I wish a lot of this was brought up a very long time ago, and I'm glad we're clarifying things now, but I do kind of agree. If Wales is writing out the guide, for example, it's not like two people writing at the same time. You'd write out the guide, then one person would go over it. Like Twilight's writing it, then we go over it, or then Wales would write it, and then you guys go over it. That would be fine, at least in my opinion. It would have been nice if this was all clarified a very long time ago, because I do think, I'm not going to mince words, and I'm pretty sure Nico has said the exact same thing. Wales is, how do I say this? You all know it.
He's a bad communicator.
Yes, there you go. That's a good way to put it. He's a bad communicator. I wish this was clarified a very long time ago, so it didn't all have to come to like a month down the line. And all these issues, I don't know.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to just like, I'm not going to elaborate on this at the moment, but I would say that I think we have made in absolutely no uncertain terms, I think we have made our issues with Wales incredibly clear on multiple occasions, and been entirely ignored on that because it was believed that our issues with whales were strictly interpersonal.
Such as,
Anyway,
I mean,
I'm just
in
gonna leave it
regards
at
to
that for
the-
the time being because that's not relevant to the point. We'll
okay,
get to
sure,
that later.
sure.
But yeah, so as for the skull drag guide, like I went through this whole like 20-minute shebang with whales that didn't really go anywhere. I asked Brio. Brio was like, you know, go back to whales, just like try to sort things out. So I did that. And then I worked on my guide. I wasn't entirely sure what changes to make because whales was just very unclear about things. And I sent my second draft. I pinged the VRL chat again. I sent my second draft to Wales' DMs. After that, I was entirely ignored by Wales. He didn't even say anything. And then a bit later, I got pinged by you, Breadmage, in VRL chat. And you basically sent me like an image of the guide and like a few paragraphs of notes about like, you know, I like the gifts that you included. I think that's nice. I think you should get rid of this. You were like slightly harsh on some points, but I think it was like it was good constructive criticism. You said like, I don't really like the kind of like tone of writing that you're choosing for this. It should be a little bit more like straightforward as like, you know, just this is the thing. Like it was all fantastic advice. It was super concise. It was one message. It was great. So then I went back to it, made all the tweaks that you wanted, and like, you know, kind of just like changed some stuff around so it'd flow better and all that stuff. And then I send the third draft in, to once again both to Wales and you. Wales again entirely ignores that it exists. And then you get back to me and you're like, yeah, this looks good. Do you think that's ready to be posted? And I'm like, yes. And then you posted it. So this entire thing could have been avoided if I just literally never spoke to Wales about the guide in the first place. Like if I just went to you, then you would have just given me your like your very nicely constructed criticism, and then I would go back to the lab on it and then finish it.
Tell me this. I don't know if this is.
Red Mage, can I say something here?
Sure, you go, Brio. You're fine.
Okay, two things. First question: when you sent in the second draft, do you remember around what time it was?
Yeah, I can go pull up the DMs. Are you about to say like, oh, he's asleep or whatever?
I was gonna say that he works on a farm, so sometimes he can be kind of inactive during the day. So it is kind of important when it was.
Yeah. So my first draft of the guide was sent. I think I have to scroll up a little bit here. So the first draft was 7/28/2023, 6:44 p.m. This is all CT, by the way. And then we had our whole conversation.
Hey, CT. Dope.
And then the second draft was sent 7/30/2023 at 5:09 p.m. And then the third draft was sent at the same day at 9:24 p.m.
Wait, which day was this?
Okay.
7:30. So July 30th.
Sunday.
I don't know if Whale said anything in DMs, but he said he was busy that exact day, and then he gave like one little reply at like 7 p.m., but nothing else other than that.
Okay, because I will say that in my DMs with Wales, after I sent him the second draft, because like, you know, we had the whole conversation and then nothing was said in our DMs before I posted the second draft. I said, posting updated skill guide here. Sorry for the spam pings incoming. And then between that and me sending the third draft, I had absolutely zero communication with Wales. He did not say anything to me.
I don't remember. I mean, honest, I don't remember the third draft, so I can't really say anything. I remember the one I went over and did all that. That's what I remember. I don't remember any draft after that.
Yeah.
I apologize. What was the just so I can remember in my mind? What was the time frame between the second and the third draft?
The second and the third draft. So the second draft was like second draft was a little after 5 p.m. It was like 5:09, and then the third draft was sent about a little over 4 hours later at 9:24 p.m.
Okay. I think that if someone is busy, or even if they're not and you're not sure, I don't think it's particularly fair to say that he ignored you when it's only been a few hours. I mean,
Yes.
people have stuff to do.
That is less of my
I don't
point.
think that's particularly fair.
Yeah, that is less of my point. My point is more so that like, so like I had the big discussion with Wales, and then like 2 days later is when I did my second draft. And the reason it took me those 2 days to actually do the second draft is because I was kind of confused as to exactly what Wales was asking me to do. And like Red Mage, you read the second draft, and you told me that you didn't think it was very good for several reasons. And I went back, worked on that, and then you liked the third draft.
Oh, yes. Okay, now I remember the third draft. Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. The third draft is the one that got posted. And so my complaint is more so that, like, because my initial discussion with Wales was, or like the first draft was 728, right? And then the final draft was 730. If I had just chose not to talk to Wales about this and just talk to Red Mage instead on 728, it would have been done on 728 because Red Mage is actually good at articulating his points.
Okay, I think here's where I will partially disagree. The third draft so the second and third draft that, so you gave Wales the first draft, right? So
yes,
obviously there's a lot more stuff to work on. So then you give Red Mage and let's give input on the second and third draft, which has much less stuff to work on, arguably. So again, I don't think that's a particularly fair comparison to make.
I have each draft here. So the first draft, scroll up to it, because if I'm remembering correctly, the first draft actually had about the same amount of information in it as the second one. So the first draft, I'm gonna go through this. So at this stuff, that cloud is like 3 paragraphs. And just that, and then conclusion, and then we have our discussion. Second draft. Is this thing, and then cloud is once again like a little over 2-3 paragraphs. Moves is essentially the exact same length, and then conclusion is the exact same length. Yeah, between the first and second ones, I got rid of one section which more or less didn't really contain information in it. That was the one that Wales was basically just like, yeah, this isn't information that needs to be repeated. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, the first and second drafts are very similar to each other, hence why the second one had so many issues, according to Red Mage, and I would agree with him on that.
Okay, so for the first draft, how many different things did he comment on in the first draft? Was it primarily, because like I know I saw a couple of the
I'll kind of look through the conversation again to see exactly.
Well, Brio, what are you trying to get at right now? Because this is kind of spending a lot of time here, and we don't really need to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. I'm basically just trying to get at that. Between the different drafts, I don't think it would have particularly changed how long it would have taken. I think that it's important to have multiple people come in and collaborate. And some people are better at articulating stuff than others, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this particular guy would have taken faster or slower depending on who you talk to.
I kind of agree, but I do think Adlumia is right. If it didn't go through Wales, it probably would have been done a little bit quicker. I don't know what happened in the DMs, but I know Wales isn't great at articulating stuff like that. So, like I mentioned earlier, actually, Adlumia, you mentioned it was in no unclear terms that you did not like Wales' style of communicating, but it seemed upper staff thought your opinion of Wales was purely due to, what was it, attitude, not liking each other? I don't remember what you said.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I have exactly what Brio said about this at one point.
Because I think that's where the core of the issue is.
Yeah, let's see here. Sorry that this is taking a little bit. Yeah, so, Twilight said, feels like there's a better way to go about this. This is kind of in relation to, like, because we had brought up our issues that we had with Wales regarding guide things.
Is this with Brio?
Yeah, so okay. Brio said, what do you suggest? Replying to Twilight. Wales just comments, I'm not sure what to say other than I did my job of questioning, vetting, informing peeps and whatnot. I'm not just supposed to say thumbs up. And then Twilight responds to Brio, saying, I think when staff have issues with how other staff conduct business, it doesn't have to be explained on the tail end of an adjacent discussion in the staff channel, that's all. Brio says, you're right. I say, yeah, good take. And then I said, most of my problems with Wales are equally interpersonal as they are strictly business, so absolutely take them with a massive grain of salt. And then Brio said, it's definitely mostly interpersonal, is what I noticed, something you guys need to figure out on your own. I'll help where I can, but based on everything that's been said up until this point,
Wait, who is this
I'm not
conversation
sure-
between again? Sorry.
Huh?
Who is this conversation between Brio and
He's
Willis?
quoting me right now.
Yeah, I'm quoting Brio right now.
This is Brio and
No,
Willis.
this was in VRL chat?
Yes, this is in VRL chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will, if you go in VRL chat right now, here's a link to the message that I'm reading right now.
Thank you.
So yeah, he says, it's definitely mostly interpersonal is what I noticed, something you guys need to figure out on your own. I'll help where I can, but based on everything that's been said up until this point, I'm not sure a true resolution is going to be achieved, rather a compromise, if anything.
Did you ever have a, interpersonal discussion with Wills?
What, on the basis of just like, let's reach a middle ground kind of thing?
His communication. Specifically his communication, because that's...
Specifically his communication. I feel like I made that clear to Brio. I will go back to DMs to see exactly what was said regarding that.
Did Brio ever, talk to Wells about that?
I talked to Wills a little bit about it, yes. Yeah, I did talk to him a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna...
But ultimately, I still felt that this is something that needed to be addressed between the two of them, so
and
I
Brio
didn't want
mentioned
to
that
bring too
earlier.
much input on my own. Because it's just not something that I can really solve. It's like, it's personalities and styles of communication clashing. I mean, there's not a whole lot I can do about that on my side, personally. Okay.
Yeah, the point to bring up there was basically just that, like, we did say that we had issues with whales, and that your response was that you believed it to be mostly interpersonal.
I don't know about Brio's response, but I'm glad everything's being clarified right now, because it would have been great if it was like ages ago, but, you know, better late than never.
Do you not agree with my stance? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, me?
No, you red mage.
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
not necessarily, because I don't think Will's communication style is very productive, if I'm being honest.
Okay. I mean,
But it is
that's
something that could have been, I think, ironed out in either DMs or a VC together.
Yeah. So my kind of take on that whole thing is kind of on the same note that you just said, Red Mage. Like, my kind of opinion is that as far as like interpersonal conflict is concerned, it seemed like there's a lot of kind of bad blood between Wales and us, which, like, we've already been over this a billion times as to the various reasons why that was the case. But point is that we felt that there wasn't a whole lot more we could do, because a lot of our issues with Wales just stemmed from, like, him being a bad communicator, and that was mostly out of our hands. Because it's like, if we tell Wales, like, you know, if you think about from our point of view, Wales doesn't really like us.
Well,
So we don't think he would be particular, huh?
I don't know if Will's, he's not here, so I don't know. I don't know if Wills doesn't like it, but I remember him saying he didn't really, this was on the tail end of one of the arguments, I don't remember, there's been a lot, I think maybe like 3 in the past. In the tail end of one of the arguments, I'm pretty sure he said he has no problems with anyone, it's just...
He did, none of us believed it.
I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what he said, and I mean, I don't think he has any reason to lie. He's not here, I can't speak for him.
Yes. As for, like, that thing that he said, we didn't really understand what he was getting at, because that came off of the tail end of one of, like, the promote Twilight arguments, and his take was, because, like, we were basically like, okay, well, like, you don't really like Twilight, and he was like, no, I've played Valorant with him, my issues are that I think he's too hot-headed to, you know, whatever, you know, he's too hot-headed for HRL, makes sense. And all of us were kind of just confused on that, because, like, if you think somebody is hot-headed, that is a value judgment, that is an interpersonal thing.
It doesn't mean you can't like something. Nico's very hot-headed, I'm very close friends with Nico. I don't know what you're getting at.
What I'm getting at is that whether you think somebody's hot-headed or not depends on how you've interacted with them, so you can't really, it's impossible to reach a fully objective standpoint on how you think of someone's personality.
Not necessarily want to be interpersonal how you interact with them, because some of the arguments, Wales wasn't even part of it, and he could look at it as a third party.
Yep, that is true.
I am curious, though, which conversations those were. You don't have to, like, bring up specific receipts.
I could not tell you. I don't remember. I think there was only 3,
like,
but...
just one of them, and again, I mean, there's really just like a lot of conversations that we've talked about, or we may have talked about prior, and, you know, then we kind of moved on from it. I know what one of the ones before was between Twilight and Tony, way back when.
That was one, yeah.
That was like
even though
you
Twilight
were
was,
like, yeah,
Twilight was,
it didn't turn out very great.
Twilight was right,
That's just
though.
one example.
Yeah. Was this about Tony's thing about patience?
Yeah, it was patience. Yeah, Twilight was correct, but I
Right.
think that was one of them we were looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as that conversation is concerned, I feel like, I mean, I don't know how much interaction you guys have had with Tony. He is kind of difficult to reason with.
I mean, we're at least me at where that Tony has his issues. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you're aware to some extent, but I assure you that there is no reasonable way that you would know
Yeah.
why I was so freaked out at him. And what you said, Brio, I kept in my mind since you said it. An emotional outburst does not necessarily make for a pattern. Tony was a very special case.
I
And
am only
I don't
very lightly, no, a very small amount, but I see what you mean.
Yeah. I mean,
Tony in areas and channels that are not this Discord displayed alarming behavior. That's what I'll say.
I heard
Yeah,
something of the
I will
sort.
He and I,
100% back up
yes,
Twilight
he
on
and
it.
I fell apart very hard, very hard.
Yes. I can back this up 100%. Odds on Nitty both also saw those conversations. They can also back it up.
Yes, I can.
I believe
Yes,
it, yeah.
so- Yeah, so basically, Tony said some extremely concerning and alarming things, and that resulted in he and Twilight going from, like, kind of co-workers, so to speak, that was kind of their relationship prior to this, into both of them being very hostile to each other. So,
Okay. At least okay. Then this was like from my perspective. Of your own red mage. From my perspective, even with this whole falling out thing, as I told Tony, that's not necessarily indicative of a pattern of you being overly emotional. That wasn't really, at least from like what I remember reading in War Room, that wasn't necessarily like the biggest thing that you were getting angry and just like outbursts. It was just like how you talk and like what you say and how people may interpret it. Sometimes it can rub people it has rubbed people the wrong way. That was more so the issue.
I mean,
And you can correct me
understand
if I'm
your
wrong on that
thought.
one, Red Mage.
No, I think I vaguely remember that discussion.
Yeah, and that is the impression that I have got from multiple people, especially I think Brio and I talked about that extensively. And I mean, I won't defend what I said to Tony because I was trying to rub him the wrong way. I wanted to make him feel like an idiot. And I can safely say from the bottom of my heart, I've never had that intention with anybody else in the server, even though, as you know, I don't enjoy interacting with whales. I've never tried to make him feel bad, and I've never, intentionally gone out of my way to be as nasty as I was to Tony. And I'll apologize again for what I said to him, but yeah, that was an emotional, unstable moment. The only issue that I've had, I know Brio and I have talked about this, although I'm not sure I am willing to find a quote at the moment, but I did talk about this with Wales too. So Wales also told me a lot of the times when he replies or DMs me about things that I say, he says, you don't need to take things so personally. And I keep trying to tell him I'm not. But then, from my perspective, it then seems like when I type things, people take them personally, and I'm like, I'm not personally attacking you, but you're taking it personally, and then you're telling me not to take it personally, and it's become a very confusing mess for me.
I think we already went over this, like, if Wales is just saying, don't take it personally, that is too vague, and it doesn't really, like with Wales' communication, it doesn't really get at what the issue is, which is more like what it comes off to as other people, not making an assertion about you, it's just about how your text comes off to other people. I just needed miscommunication between whales.
Well, yeah, which is
communication between
yeah. So you'll notice it happens a lot here.
Yeah.
And to kind of just reiterate what Lumi said, like eventually I ended up basically talking to Brio about it for a long time, and then at the end of that, I felt much better about it. I was like, oh, I think I get it now, and
Yeah.
I just never had that impression when talking with whales at any point.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally every time one of us interacts with whales, and it gets to the point where it's just a total like stalemate, where we just like have no idea how the fuck to continue the conversation. Like most of the time, we go to Brio, and then Brio is like, "Yeah, I think that you guys are just misinterpreting each other." And then somehow, magically, when people actually like start making their points clear, i.e., whales starts actually like saying things, suddenly the amount of conflict goes down substantially.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of our problems with whales as a whole stem from the fact that because he's a bad communicator, he's really, really fucking bad at getting his points across. So not only do things take longer, but his ability to resolve conflict is just bad. There are, like, kind of course, the two main things to bring up in regards to his ability to resolve conflict are, of course, more recently, I mean, I can just read the DMs because he didn't say a whole lot, but originally, kind of at the very start of this whole thing, I asked in, I think it was staff meeting, I was like, why was Nico promoted? And then I received a DM from Wales. He told me to check DMs, and he said, we promoted the two HRLs we felt were the best fit for the role, much. I said, why say this in DMs? He said, staff meeting isn't usually for that type of thing. Also, Brio told me a DM. I said, what channel would be appropriate to discuss, or for this kind of discussion? He said, discuss what? I said, why Nico was promoted. And then he just quoted himself about we promoted the two HRLs, and he just said, dis. I said, that's not really an explanation. That's the only answer I can give, lol. And I said, I mean, you're an admin though, right? Wouldn't you have a say in whether Nico gets promoted or not? And then he quoted himself again, his first message, said, yes, that's why I said this. I said, that's a non-answer. I would appreciate more specificity, especially since the last time I even heard of Nico HRL was you and Redmage saying he would never be HRL, so what changed? He just said, we needed an HRL for both sections, and then he once again quoted himself, so we did this. And then I asked why the sudden urgency, and he just said, ask upper staff, as if he's not a fucking admin. And then he quoted himself again afterwards, like he said his first message like 4 times, even though I kept telling him it wasn't helpful. And so that's the first situation of him just being incapable of actually like solving problems like that. And then of course the even bigger one is the whole lockdown situation, where we were having like a moderately heated argument, and Wales, like fairly early on, was like, we should bring this to a higher channel. We should bring this to War Room. And then people continued discussing because like most of the people involved in that conversation were not upper staff. And then Wales was basically like, things are getting too heated. I'm locking down the channel. And then people are like, whoa, 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 locking down the channel, that's like not very good. And then he locks down the channel anyway. And then the conversation just moved elsewhere and got arguably even more heated.
What do you mean about arguably even more heated? Because I don't... Personally, I think
actually, I remember the more specific timeline.
Sure.
So the argument was getting heated, and then it started calming down. So basically, he said he was going to lock down the channel, and then we continued discussing, and things were like a little bit heated. And then things started dying down. Like people kind of said their kind of angry piece, so to speak. A lot of people were acting irrationally during the lockdown situation, and by a lot of people, I think basically everybody. And once the conversation started being productive again, was when Wales made the executive decision to lock down the channel.
2 things.
So at least, yeah.
1, probably not important. I think the admin saying ask upper staff is probably way worse because that's self-explanatory. But the lockdown situation, it's been a while, so I can't really argue on this because I don't really remember, but I don't feel like the conversation was productive, or it was getting productive either. It wasn't productive, and then it wasn't. Didn't feel like it was getting productive, and I think that's why I chose to lock down. I probably wouldn't choose to lock down his position, but I don't think the conversation was productive. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll up so I can find exactly the spot. All right, I found the exact discussion. It happened in leader chat.
Okay, can I ask something?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Go Bruno.
Yeah, Red Mage, we did talk about this more after
Yeah,
the fact.
exactly.
We did talk about how it probably wasn't the best idea, so you can talk to about that. So I would say that particular issue was resolved. So I don't think that we need to continue with that, personally.
No, the reason I'm bringing it up is that I'm saying that, like, in the lockdown situation, Wales displayed that, was he? No, he was not an admin yet at that point in time. He was promoted about a week later, I believe. But it showed that at a time when people are kind of arguing about stuff, he's not particularly good at bringing that to a resolution that makes people not still just angry at each other. Because at least from all of our points of, or like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like kind of briefly read through this again just so I can get kind of a more up-to-date image of it. Start of the discussion. God, this lasted a while.
We have like four HRLs and 2 admins in here. I don't know how an upper staff member would come in there and resolve everything where everyone's happy without a lockdown. Obviously, I don't think lockdown is the decision, but I don't know how you would do that, and I do understand Wes's point.
Okay,
No,
so
for me personally, I would have just kind of just let it fizzle out, because what's
exactly.
I personally would have just let it fizzle out.
Yeah, because the thing about locking down the channel is that it shows that you want to shut down the discussion, and so if people don't agree that like you should just like end it there, then locking down the channel just makes it worse, because then everybody is just like, oh, they just like told us to shut up, basically. But I'm reading through the lockdown situation again, just to kind of get a better picture. If you go into leader chat, I will post the start of that discussion. So yeah, like it starts with Nico just asking about like the Moonlight Guide, and Itty just explains what his takes were on stuff. Red Mage, you kind of interject, backing Itty up on that, based off of like, the Moonlight Guide uses a bit of a different format than the Shatters Guide in terms of how we represent something as being TRL, ARL, or RL. And then Itty continues talking about it, Nico also does, and then Itty continues explaining it as how the guide is formatted. And then you say that's not how it's later in Shatters callouts, which is true. You continue going on about that. Twilight says the callout system for Shats and MLV cannot be compared. Red Mage says, why? We have tier 0 calls for tier L.
We could skip through most of this, I feel.
We're wasting a lot of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good take. So the gist of it is that like it's mostly just like Itty, Red Mage, Nico, just being like Itty explaining the guide, and you guys being like it's different from the Shatters one. And then
I could just summarize it really quick.
Yeah, good take.
Nico starts it. I talk a bit. I fade off into the sunset. Some other people bring in their points. Wales goes, oh my god. A lot of talking happening. Some people are mad. Lockdown. People get mad at that. And then after a bit, it sort of dies down, and then suddenly, oh, it's locked down. And then anger after that. I don't know what summarizing did, but...
Okay, I found where the exact lockdown thing happened.
No, we all have the gist of it.
Yeah.
I think almost all of us are familiar with like what went down. I had to read about it later, but maybe I'll kind of get the gist of what happened. We realized that yes, at the time it was wasn't the best decision. However, we'll say, and this is where I'm gonna back up Rose a little bit here. He did what he thought was best at the time. When we reconvened about it, sure, yes, we realized no, that wasn't the best. But sometimes, depending on what's going on, sometimes you may make decisions that may not be ideal for the time, but you try to use the tools that you have, just try to make the best decision that you could, and that's what he felt was the best decision at the time.
Yes,
Which,
our-
when we talked about, maybe not ideal. Okay, that's all that was.
Okay. I'd like to make also a point. It wasn't only not a good idea, right? It was a very bad idea, and this was also expressed in the conversation itself. And I know we're trying to sort of move away from this conversation, so I'll make it quick. But Wales actually proved sort of a justification as to why he wanted to completely shut down the conversation, and that justification is that discussing the guide and discussing what should be in the guide or not should not. I mean, to quote, it's almost like this is a server decision, so it's made by upper staff. I think this is sort of representative of the idea that not only does Wales have large issues with communicating, but also actively hinders discussions from other people. And this happened way early in the conversation, before anyone was getting heated. And yeah, I think it's not only not the best decision, because that's putting it way too lightly. Right, that was an awful decision.
I'm not putting it lightly. I said it was a poor decision.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily the severity of the decision matters in this case. We all agree that it was not the best decision. We don't need to talk about if it's bad or if it's kind of bad. Point is, it wasn't the best decision. Okay. I don't think severity matters. But however, I will like to ask, after that, after the whole thing with the whole locking down conversation that we had with him, how would you say that things changed in regards to that for later conversations that may or may not have gotten, like, at least for me, I don't recall him locking on channels after that, because he was talking about that. So I think it should be noted that that is something that he learned from, and it's something that even I at one point may have made that mistake, and I think that mistakes happen. Okay.
Yes. Our
So,
kind of.
Keep going. I was just going to say, I would like to move on from this to just the next point that you have, if you have any other points to bring up, and then I would like to kind of see where we can go from there.
I have one more major point regarding stuff. Just kind of the last thing to talk about regarding this is that it's less so about like, oh, Wales wants to like lock down channels, because like you guys talked to him about it and he has not locked down the channel since. Rather, it's just like kind of indicative that Wales would kind of just rather stop the conversation than make an attempt to like mediate anything. That's kind of what happened when he DM'd me about this entire situation, is that he was not able to give me any kind of answer that sounded to me like he wasn't just like avoiding the question. And then when pressed on it, he's just like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do, ask upper staff. So at least to me, it seems that he has a very difficult time actually figuring out what to do in these kinds of situations.
For that specific example, I don't know. That was stupid for him to say ask upper staff. He was just promoted to admin he's not here obviously, so I don't know if any of this is true, so take this with a grain of salt. He was just promoted to admin. I don't know. When you ask why was X or why was Nico promoted to HRL, I don't know if he knows how much he can say, because all that discussion
Yeah,
was
that's
in
what I was
admin
gonna-
chat
yeah.
between
Yes.
whatever people. He was just promoted to admin. I don't think he should be expected to leak everything. He didn't want to, throw
Yeah,
anyone
say
under the
too
bus
much.
if they said something
Yes.
that
Yes,
didn't want to
but
be said.
Yes, that's kind of part of my issue with the entire situation from the get-go, was just that both from Wales and also you, it seemed there was a bit of a lack of clarity on exactly what happened. It took Darkin personally leaking stuff, even though he was the least involved in it, to actually understand the full picture. And I think that much of this could have been avoided had either you or Wales actually explained what the situation was instead of letting us say, hey, we think that this was bad, even when the thing that was bad was untrue. The most that you would say in regards to that was just, that's not true, and you did not elaborate on those points. And so from all of our points of view, I believe Darkin has already kind of told you about this, it sounded like you guys just wanted to dodge the question and like we could tell that you were bullshitting us, is kind of the point. So we wanted a lot more clarity in terms of what was going on, and that was not provided.
Okay. I think I can try and something here. This was mostly an admin decision anyway. This has just kind of been the general culture and how we do things here. Usually, for a lot of upper steps that we like to try not to give too much stuff away. We like to try to be concise and whatnot. But in terms of like transparency, I'm sure you know from like any server in general, we usually 100% transparency isn't always the best for certain things.
I have an
So
example.
we like to keep certain.
Rio,
go ahead.
I know we don't do this in War Room, but for example, right when I came as HRL, it was like Lumpy and saying all the different reasons why, I shouldn't be HRL. Red Mage should not be promoted. Blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
If we start saying that to all the lower staff, it looks. We're trying to be objective in War Room, but it does not look like that when all the lower staff see it. It looks like we're just deriding them and blocking them out of HRL. Yep. That's why we don't. We're not saying anything.
That's why usually like for at least for a time we would like purge War Room before we promote HRL because we didn't want them to like see the kind of bad stuff we said about them. We actually had some Darker members, just a little bit before my time. Someone actually stepped down like a couple of days after they were promoted because they saw like what people said about them. So for a time, we would just like we want to try to keep things slightly under wraps, but while still trying to be straightforward about like our decisions. That's just kind of how the culture has always just been. That's
at least as I understand it right now, I think currently when you promote people at HR, you tell them like not to scroll back in War Room for that reason.
No, we don't say anything. No.
Not anymore.
Recently, no. We just. I think sometimes we just like delete like if there's like a vote, like a check and an X, I will delete that, I guess. But for the most part, no. We just kind of just be like whatever. If they can't handle it, then they probably weren't fit for HRL. That's how we do it.
Fair enough. Yeah, my point regarding this is less like I'm not asking of like, oh, just like show your ass at all times, but more so just that in this situation, the specific thing being asked for was like we think things are unclear, and that there are issues revolving around that, and that the things we were told were very clear that you guys just trying to avoid saying anything definitive about it, and we could tell. But yeah, I think everybody's spoken their piece on that. Unless anyone.
Yeah, I think you mentioned like a bit ago. Oh shit! If you said most of this could have been avoided if they were just more transparent. I really think all of this, like every single problem. Well, obviously not every single problem, but almost everything could have been avoided if this was just clarified a month, maybe even 2 months ago. Everyone just got like a one-on-one discussion between like you guys and Wales. I guess it wouldn't be one-on-one, it'd be one-on, a lot of people. But a discussion with Wales clarifying things ages ago, because after all this, it's good we're clarifying now, but it would have been better if it was ages ago. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, personally, I would argue that we have kind of brought this stuff in the past.
Well, we already went over that in this conversation.
We have already.
I'm talking more specifically about directly with Wales, either in VC or like all y'all in a group chat with him. But it was mostly like to Brio, and Brio didn't really want to go behind it and like do a bunch of stuff when he's not privy to everything.
This was as a result of us feeling like communicating with Wales was pointless and
I understand.
getting out of hand.
I understand. But this simply just can't be solved without communication. And I know Brio said that in the past.
So as a counterpoint to that, so I talked to Brio about it. He said the same thing you said. He said communicate with Wales. I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. Need to make an effort. That's when what I talked about earlier, when he replied to what I said in VRL chat when you and I were talking about the Shatters call-out guide, and I DM'd him, and he didn't say anything. He stopped even replying. I basically said, hey man, you said this is how it makes me feel,
I mean something more I mean that was good, and Wales probably didn't have the best response. I'm more speaking specifically not on the tail end of a discussion and not on anything specific, but on Wales' overall behavior, not anything specific, like Wales' overall behavior, because this has been a consistent problem. I mean, Wales could have reached out too, but...
I mean, again, I would reiterate what Lumi said, that, on our end, it feels like we did reach out to multiple parties, and...
The problem is not multiple parties, because Brio already said, when you reached out to Brio, he specifically said he couldn't get into it, and to get into it specifically with Wales. I'm not saying this is your fault, because it's obviously Wales' problem, but Wales' problem can't get resolved unless there's a very direct, overarching discussion about it.
I mean, if you ask me, the way an organization like this works is by going to the person who's in charge of who you're
Brio isn't privy to every single thing.
But he's an uninterested party that is his superior is the point. If we talk to Wales, it has to become this thing of like, Wales doesn't like us for X, Y, and Z. We don't like Wales because X, Y, and Z. And we have to figure out a way to negotiate attitudes. If we talk to Brio, Wales probably doesn't have strong opinions on Brio, neither do we. So Brio is a very good intermediary in that, because then Brio can, from a much more objective standpoint, be like, Wales, these are kind of like the issues they have with you, and then you guys, these are the kind of issues that Wales has with you, and that's a much more effective way of mediating things than just sticking Wales into a VC with all of us and basically being like, Wales.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what Brio's thoughts about this are, but what I'll say, what should have been done months ago, Brio or someone else, maybe not specifically Brio, should have either been in a VC or a group chat, and this all should have been talked out at the same time. I don't know if Brio's the best choice for this, but that's my take on it. It should, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're totally fine to say that. I mean, I'd say that I'm okay.
You're gonna have to say more.
I would say that I'm not necessarily always the best. I would say maybe. I don't know. Everyone, I'd say me, Darkin, you, Red Mage, even, we all have our own different skill sets. So I don't think this is necessarily like a best choice for this, but for me, at least with this particular issue, this is like a issue that I personally have never had to deal with in the server. So I honestly just did not know fully how I wanted to go about it. So I wanted to play, in this case, I just wanted to play the more passive approach of being like, hey, you guys need to try and talk amongst each other, because this is it's not like an objective thing where it's like, oh, this person is not leading enough, or this feedback isn't great, or activity, or it's it's something very core to Wales in this case. So that's just something that I just didn't really know how I want to go about it.
Yeah. Alright, so then the kind of two last things I think I have to bring up.
Wait, actually, can I say something
two
before
more
we move on?
Yeah, I said one more earlier, but one's kind of attached to it, so.
Okay.
Was anyone aware of the relationship that, say, Lumi or Twilight or Eddie or me had with Wales? Was anyone? I mean, Brio was aware that there were communication issues between all of us. Red Mage, did you have any idea of this?
Yeah, there was some sort of communication issue. Yeah. I was privy to it when like the what was it, the Skull Drag guide came out, and Wales was, I think, odds you DM'd me about it. I don't remember. I knew there was something, but I wasn't. I think I knew what you DM'd me.
Yeah. When these sort of when you see this sort of conflict happening, I would say that it's a good idea as someone who's in upper staff and also not directly involved in the conflict. I think that provides a good opportunity to help mediate things, and there was an opportunity for you to help out, right? I think that it would have been possible for you to help the process along. Yep.
I agree. I don't know what specifically I was supposed to do. If I was brought up about it or messaged about it, I would have done it. I didn't know the extent of this, of what I know right now. But I should have jumped in the past. Yeah.
I would say that in your case, because they didn't directly reach out to you, was because both of you guys were HRLs,
Yeah, I
so
know,
they
yeah.
wanted to, go to superior. I wasn't admin at the time, so that was the fall in.
In
So
hindsight,
of course,
if I was
this is
privy to
primarily on
everything,
me too. I will take some blame for this. I can completely agree.
in hindsight, if I've known everything,
No.
I could have stepped forward, and I should have stepped forward.
At least from our point of view, the reason that we went to, because like, I guess you don't exactly know when we DM'd Brio, obviously, Red Mage, but at least from our point of view, and I mean, obviously, any of you guys are free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we felt that like most, like, you're friends with Wales, so we weren't 100%
No, I
confident
understand.
that
I understand 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so you weren't totally confident you would be impartial, but so yeah, that's why we preferred Brio over you to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so last two things. Number one is just as far as Wales being an effective HRL admin is concerned, he doesn't really proactively contribute or like does not proactively start server projects. Instead, someone else has to start it, and then he comes in and asks, hey, can I help you with this? Like with the Twilight Shatters callout guide. That was something that was like hopelessly outdated. And then Twilight as a VRL, so like it's not even really his job, he started it out of passion, and then after he had already started working on it was like, hey, I want to contribute. Like, why couldn't he have started that himself?
I know.
Yeah, I want to add something here too.
Yeah.
Where is Wales? Because my impression of it is different than you, but Wales would know all the stuff he's done. I don't know the stuff. I can't say anything about Wales. I don't think any of us can, unless like Brio's been like super active in the server. But that was not my impression of Wales, at least from more in the past. I don't know what he's done recently. I'm not keeping tabs on it, but he would know the answers to all these.
Yes, and then Itty.
Proactivity, sorry?
If for like any of his HRL activities, he would know the answer. He's not here. I don't know where he's at.
Yeah. For that thing, that's more so just like more of a question for Wales. But the other thing,
I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean, though.
Yeah, and then the other thing, Itty, can you recount the Vibot thing?
Oh man. I mean, I don't know. It seemed rough to get everyone on the same time. It also seemed like I was the only person who could make or like was around for the meetings when they would want me to like actually meet up with them.
When is this? Can you?
This is about Vibot.
Yeah.
Having Vibot meetings.
Oh, with
which
the
I don't think you were
templates?
around for.
No,
I
with the
believe I'm
templates.
making
I was there.
for the-
Templates is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, you might have been around for one of them.
I remember I was in there with. No, I think it might have been
Sarah?
later. That might have been later. I don't think I was there, but I was. I remember the discussion. I gotta see in the room, but I know what you're talking about. You can keep going.
I mean, I think it was just a lot of like, hey, anyone available at this time? I think one of the times it was like pretty late into it, so I couldn't really give anyone a heads up. But like for the most part, I tried to give people heads ups. I didn't really get too much information on like availabilities and stuff, so I just kind of went with it by myself. And then I think like one of the big things for me that like really messed me up was when I posted my like big thing on like this is like what I talked about with the guys, and then Will's first thing he told me was like something about the Rusher thing, how he was like there shouldn't be gifts here, and then we had this whole like weird debate about it, and then it ended with me being like, yeah, this is already like this is just a part of it, and he was like, oh, okay. And like,
yeah, sure. What's
I
the
don't know, it's just a huge.
What's the core issue with the how the templates got started, or all the template issue?
I was just kind of on my own for the most part on that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get any proper feedback on my whole like big update on Vibot stuff ever.
You mean the message road templates and examples?
Yeah, the first one. There might have been a second one that I did get feedback.
Let me. I see the example from the first one. It looks like I don't quite remember much, but when I look back to it in Worm, it looks like Wales is responding to pretty much everything about the template.
Where is that? I actually can't.
July 31st. Unless there was one before that I forgot about. This was July 31st.
Can you just link it for me?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I should do that. Sorry. I'll just put it in Worm. Hold on. I just scrolled away from it, so whoopsie daisy. Copy message. There you go. This is the one I was on. There might have been one before that.
Yeah, this isn't it. It's way for like the first one. Like this was like.
Is this not the first one?
No, that is not.
Okay, yeah, hold on. I'm scrolling. Yeah, I see.
It is. It was a while. Oh, okay. Wait, is this it? No, that's changes.
Here,
oh my
let
God.
me look. I found it. Let me. Sorry.
It might take a while, dude. It is far up.
It is
I
far up.
imagine it is super far up.
Is this what you're talking about?
Probably not. One second, let me check. No.
Wait, sorry, are we talking about the templates?
Yeah.
specifically?
Oh wait. Oh, that's it. That's it. This is it. Actually, sorry. That's my bad. This is it. Yeah. So Wales had this thing about the whole like thing, and then I mainly wanted to like clarify like channel creation. And I don't believe I ever got word for that until I had to bring it up again, like a long time later.
Channel version actually important. Oh, when you say I wasn't here. I was confused. I was confused because I knew I was HRL here. I'm pretty sure I was on leave here, right?
Yeah, you were on leave during this.
Okay, that makes. I was very confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure I was.
I mentioned that at the start that I thought you were on leave during.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed that. Sorry. I was confused.
Yeah, so I was like trying to like, I don't know. I think my problem was that I mean I don't feel like this should be a problem, but maybe I just like needed to spam ping more about like, hey, what's our opinion on this sort of thing.
I need to do that too. Because sometimes you guys are right.
To me,
Yeah.
I wasn't here. To me, it looks like Lester or Will says if it works already and more work is needed, then it's all right. And then Brio, what's your opinion? This is more server-sided stuff. This is more on you. I don't know what else he could say if it's more his thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm reading this for the first time now, so I don't know if Brio responded, but it looks like Will's responded.
Oh,
I never got
so
a
what's your opinion too?
I never got a definitive answer, like for swapping to non-static, basically. I mean, maybe I didn't explain it well enough.
Brio says, I think at a time we tried with GoldieBot and it worked fine. We can do that again. I don't see much problems with it. Wouldn't break anything, just need to upgrade perms. And you say, chart with upwards trend.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, maybe that wasn't too big of a deal then.
Okay. So any do you not have any qualms with the Vibot stuff then in that case?
even aside from it just being me on my own, it wasn't like.
I don't know what you
that big of a
mean.
deal,
I
it
don't
was just
know what you mean by you on your own.
Like he
Like,
just
okay.
decided things.
every time, like, anytime a meeting time was placed, like, I tried to make it so
Here,
it was.
wait. It was at the very end of July, right? 'Cause if I can just go to the very end of July, I can look through this shit.
Yeah, so it would be over the course of July because the Vibot update happened.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure when we were trying to get together, it was at the very end of July, right?
Yeah, to
If
like
you-
finish everything up. Yeah, it
there was
should
a
be.
few dates.
Around
Yeah, maybe that was the
then,
final one.
Trying to remember, because I do remember trying to get together in Wales does code, he said. I remember he said, he even talked to the Vibot devs about this. He already looked over the templates. We could just communicate with Wales directly, and he'll put in whatever we want to know, because he knows how the templates work, because they told him. I'm not a coder, so I don't really get it, but, you found it? Click on that.
Like when you guys started like finalizing everything end of July.
I did it with Adri.
Trying to finish.
Oh yeah, he called you 80 because he's using text-to-speech.
80.
Yeah, it was around here we were trying to get together, and it was not... I remember it not being easy to get together. Let me see. Okay, I scrolled up too far.
I mean, I think we talked a lot about it with our thing with Sauron, like in VC.
I don't know, this was the 29th, and I ping everybody, I say, I'm free, and then... Apparently you already did it, I don't know. I don't know where before this we talked about it.
Yeah, I don't know as well.
I don't.
I don't even know what the point of this is. I'm lost.
I don't know.
lost
I
at this
find like
point.
I don't know. At times I feel like sometimes you guys are, at least from my perspective, kind of hard to reach sometimes. And that I mean that's just a
Yeah.
product of everyone having our own stuff to deal with, so that happens. But you know, it's just.
I mean, this whole like vibe about like trying to get meetings going and stuff. Like, I at some point, I'm pretty sure I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna try and get this finished because they were also pressuring us to be like, hey, we want to get this done before August. Blah blah blah, and I was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. End of July. Wales said, I don't know if you ping Wales anywhere, but he said just holler at him for setting up format. I don't remember. I know he was in one of the VCs. He was in VCs with the devs, and like I said, either of us just need to get in contact with him, and he could do anything. But hold on. I don't know if you pinged him anywhere. I can't find a message anywhere where he was pinged at. But then you kind of just.
I messaged him.
I understand the pressure from the Vibot devs, but it probably shouldn't have been a solo thing because some stuff got messed up, like specifically event pings that ping like pretty much everyone in the server like 20 times. That
Yeah.
probably hurt activity a bit. I don't know. I mean, all's well that ends well. I don't know.
Ooh, wait, sometime between July 6th to 9th. Maybe that will help me find this.
When the July 6th to 9th?
Yeah, apparently that was when a meeting happened.
I was on leave then, so I don't know anything about that. I know what I'm referencing is
Oh, maybe that was the first one.
when I'm trying to remember when the Vibot devs were putting pressure on us to get stuff going. It was the 6th of July. Wales says, holler at me. I'm pretty sure there was a VC with this too. We were in VC. I don't remember, but he said holler at me when we can set up things, and I hollered on the 28th. But then after that, you've already finished it.
On the 24th, okay, open here. On the time. Then you say you'll be there. Did I even post a time? Why did I have to post a time? Did that meeting even happen? I don't remember the situation well enough, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna check my Adri DMs. That would probably help.
I'm pretty sure. I mentioned on it was the 24th of July. I mentioned I didn't know anything. I read over the PDF. I didn't understand it. I don't code none of that stuff. I'm pretty sure it was around the 24th when we all had a discussion with the bot devs. I think it was me, you, Wales. Don't quote me on that.
Okay. That's
Oh.
a bad thing.
It was
Or
in. It was
more so just like a clarifying.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
So, AD, just
Mhm.
answer yes or, well, not really yes or no, but just like, what exactly is the complaint here that you were just mostly on your own in regards to working on the templates because of availability with meetings, or?
Honestly, it's less so that. It's just that, like, I didn't really get much feedback on the first stuff. But, like, Red Mage wasn't even here for that. It was literally just Wales.
I mean, I looked over it. Will said he wasn't sure and Brio would know more about it. He saw it and he did what he could. As far as I can tell, I wasn't there.
I mean, there's like the whole bit about the template. Honestly, looking back at the situation, I think I just needed to bug more about, like, hey, is this good on the template?
That makes sense.
Like,
Did
that was probably
you,
it.
on the 25th, 11:20 a.m. or less CT, so around there, you'll find it if you scroll. I actually linked the message. That's easier. I don't know why I'm giving you timestamps. Did we convene and do anything around this message? Oh, I posted in bot discussion. I thought that was a war room.
I'm so sorry, guys. We've been here for quite a while now.
Yeah.
I want to try to wrap this up soon. This particular
Yeah, I have
conversation
one
seems like something that you and Edie should just
This seems like
converge on your own. Can we get to the conclusion of what you guys want to do moving forward, and we can try and figure out what to do from there?
Yeah, so I have one thing to just go over kind of more quickly. This is kind of a smaller point. But basically, kind of replying to the whole Twilight callouts guide, how that was handled, it seemed that the justification for all of that taking as long as it did was basically that it was kind of a big project. We wanted everybody to look at it first, right?
Yes.
Sure, but the problem was
Yes.
no one was looking at it for 2 weeks, and no one knew what was going on with it. No one knew if it was being updated or anything.
I thought that like Wales
And for example,
did you guys join the guard test thing like way later?
Yeah,
the
and for
server?
example, Nico wanted to go over. He knew of its existence, but I had to invite him to the guide test so he could look at it.
But yeah, I'm talking like kind of more towards the end of it. Like, remember when we all went into VC to kind of read over the entire thing together? Like, all of the VRLs?
I do remember that, but I don't remember the exact timeline.
Yeah, the exact time doesn't matter. Just the fact that, like, you know, the kind of Twilight's end of it was done, and then he sent it in, and then we all went over it in VC before it was posted, because people wanted to make sure that everything was accounted for, right?
Was this... I vaguely remember this was not when we were looking at the, This was not when we were looking at the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, was this a separate conversation?
this for
Because I
the
was in the spreadsheet one.
Spreadsheet
the
one or a
comment
different
section.
one?
I think it was the spreadsheet one. I'm like pretty sure it was the spreadsheet one.
Because we got the
Okay,
spreadsheet
yeah, 'cause
one done, and I know
Yeah.
there was a little miscommunication between Wales and Twilight, and then a miscommunication between
Yeah.
me and Wales, and then I posted it when it wasn't supposed to be posted yet. That's a completely different thing. You're probably
Yeah, I know.
get
I'm
into
not talking about that.
But,
I'm not talking about it.
But I'm talking mainly about the detailed portion. It was kind of static for like 3 weeks, and we
Yeah,
didn't really know
I
what
know.
was going on.
I know. I'm just saying that, like, the handling of at least the spreadsheet version, you guys had kind of, like, as close to a finished version as you could, and then you brought it up to the VRLs to kind of go over that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So, do you know what happened with Twilight's hard mode callouts?
I have no clue. No clue.
We during the conversation, because Twilight wasn't there. It
You
was
said we'd
that
go over
we
it at a later date, right?
yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Yeah, but at least from what I heard, is basically just we'll work on it later. So like Twilight, I forget if this was slightly before or slightly after. I'm pretty sure it was slightly after. I don't know, Twilight, you can correct me on that one. Twilight posted his version of his hard mode callouts guide in VRL chat, then it kind of just entered limbo. Nobody talked about it after that.
You talking about detailed or spreadsheet?
Detailed. He posted a TXT file.
Let me go.
I can find
from...
specifically where that's.
That'd be great because I'll look at it from Twilight.
Were VRLs or Atros pinged a couple times when it was like ignored for a day or two to be like, okay, can you guys look at this?
I pinged Wales directly below where he had posted the TXT to talk about Skull Guide. So unless he literally just like was not paying any attention to what was going on directly above the message I pinged him in, then yes, he would have seen it. And also Wales himself, I mean, again, Twilight, correct me if I'm wrong, Wales himself told Twilight, because Twilight asked about it, he was basically just like, yeah, post in VRL chat. Anyway.
This is correct that I DM'd it to Wales, and Wales told me to post it in the VRL chat.
Yeah. So there's where he posted the TXT, and right below it you can see I pinged Wales for something else. So Wales most certainly, he at the very least knew that it was posted because Twilight told him that. And he also had this guide himself in his DMs because Twilight was talking to him about it.
I'm sorry I didn't look over this. I didn't see this. I'll tell you what happened on my side. Since the guide was in the guide test server, Nico wanted to see the guide. I sent him the guide. He asked me where the hard mode guide was. I must not have seen this in VRL chat because I was completely clueless. I said, I don't think Twilight made one. And then...
It's in the guide post.
Can you re-invite me to that and I can see it? Me and
yeah,
Nico did not see it.
It is directly below his call-outs guide.
You're gonna need to re-invite me because since it was all over, I cleaned up my servers.
Yeah, no, I understand. Going to... I'll post this in VRL chat. Here's the link that's on the general. If you go to Twilight Time, which is of course where he had all of that stuff, and you scroll to where he was actually posting the guide itself, if you go to the bottom of that, that's where he has all of the hard mode stuff.
Okay, I see. This is why I didn't see it. It was in... This is a, discussion channel. I'm gonna be honest, that's not 100% my bad. Nico was looking through the guides. I also only looked over the guides. I didn't look through the discussion channels. That's my bad. I thought it was in its own channel.
I mean, it should have been. I think we did a little bit of whoopsie there.
Yeah.
But
although it does beg the
whatever.
question of, like, why didn't Wales mention anything in regards to it? Because Wales is like, okay, send in VRL chat, and then Twilight did send in VRL chat, and then Wales just did not bring it up after.
I did read a little bit more further down. I believe there was something from Lumia talking about how, like, why is this taking so long? And then Wales pings HML to be like, okay, can you guys look at this as well? And then it just kind of goes from there.
If
I
I've seen
don't know
it,
if there was any
mind.
talks in DMs after that or not.
No.
But what I will say is that, like I said before, I mean, sometimes. Hold on. What I'll say is that, in regards to these things, sometimes things can just fall under the radar. It happens. Just reping, re-DM. A couple of days pass by. If it gets drowned out, it happens. And that's what I think happened here. Unless it happened in DMs.
Is Wales busy? Because I mean, we could just talk to him. It'd probably be easier.
This would be a good thing to ask him about specifically, because I guess kind of the overall question that I'm like about to get to, and this is kind of like a very brief part of it. But the point.
Wait, hold on. Let me. Again, I'm sorry. I have to go very soon. Can we just conclude this? Any other logistics you guys can talk about? With Wales and stuff like that. But just, what do you want me to do, if anything, right now? Well, what is the conclusion of this? Just be straight up, honest. What is it? And
going
we'll
into
try to see what we can do.
Yeah, to be 100% frank, going into this discussion, the only thing that we would accept is demote Wales. Just full disclosure on that one. I'm not 100% sure what we want to do from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say this.
We knew that wasn't on the table to begin with.
It's not on the table, and I don't know if I'm in a position to say why, but I do know why it's on the table, or why it's not on the table.
Interesting.
Or at least in my opinion. Because
I would like to hear this
Wales
opinion, but
told me, I don't know if
you're-
Brio, I don't know if I'm supposed to be privy to this. Brio told Wales to inform me. Wales informed me to the best visibility. Brio says I can say it, I'll say it.
Wait, one more time, sorry?
You told Wales to inform me. Dude, fuck it, I'll just say it. When you guys threatened to step because of the situation, if we want to
Is
keep
this
you
a
as...
real violation thing?
Not necessarily. It is a rule violation. Personally, I don't think anyone should be demoted for it. We can't... has nothing to do with you guys at all. It's just, if this happened with any group ever...
It's the no negotiating with terrorists clause.
Pretty much, yeah, because then it's almost like handing the server over. You know, we can't... We like give you a warning, like, yeah, you broke the rules, but we can't really...
Hold on. Before you say it, the owners, me, and Achu never said anything about that. That was 100% just Wales. Like, that has nothing. Like, and the owners, like,
Correct.
literally Satva said, we are open to negotiation. That was all Wales. That never
This-
came from any of us.
This is my opinion, because I think what Wales said is 100% correct, in my opinion. You can't... If someone does this to your server, you can't... It is giving away the server to them. If they're not... You know, do you understand what I'm saying, Darkin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So you said you know why that can't happen, and
Well,
it's because your opinion is that you can't hand the server over to people, right?
Yes.
Or you can't.
No, I mean, that's the same we're doing. You're threatening to, if this one person doesn't go, then we all go. And no one's happy at that point. So.
Yes. I mean, like, our kind of point is that our action is less affirmative of, like, grr, demote this guy or else we're all leaving. It was more so a desperation measure, because in all of our views, it was basically like, look, we've tried to stick it out, we've tried to do things where we could, and we think that the situation is just genuinely hopeless. Our only option at this point is... Like, basically, the thing is that if we wanted to have no disclosure, all of us would just step. We wouldn't tell you anything. But this was kind of a last-ditch effort to be like, look, we're all gonna leave, but if you can figure something out here, we may all stay.
The thing is, you say this is a last-ditch effort. This has been a very productive conversation. There has still never been a conversation directly with Wales this entire time. I don't think it is a last-ditch effort.
We've already been over this like 1,000 times in this
We
conversation.
have been over this 1,000 times, and it's still hasn't happened. I mentioned it 50 times. There's still never been a conversation with Wales.
Yes.
Even with the mediator.
In any event, the kind of like yeah. So I personally, my kind of opinion is just that, like, I would say that I am, like, willing to stay if everybody else is willing to stay, because ultimately, like, I have shit going on IRL. Like, you have probably seen, I've been kind of quota warrioring for the past couple weeks, so if everybody else wants to stay, then I'll stay. If everyone else wants to go, I'll go. So I would just kind of ask.
There's been a lot of that. There's a lot of staff members who have that exact same opinion. I'm not sure
Yeah.
it's worth voicing, to be perfectly honest.
I've
mean,
had the
we're-
same
we're
opinion in the past
mostly
as well
aware.
too. But it's I felt the same before.
Yes.
So
yeah,
yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, like, as far as, like, you know, going forwards, like, I just want to hear from, like, Idiots and Twilight exactly how they feel about, like, staying versus leaving at this point, what they think can be done, like that stuff.
Okay, it sounds like there needs to be a second conversation, including Wales.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's all I have. I'll wait until that, but I'm probably not gonna be around too much.
That's not a problem. You're fine.
Okay, and then odds.
Darkin, did you have something?
Considering that there's been efforts made in the past to try to resolve things, and those have all been more or less fruitless until this point, I'd say that it's not a bad idea to wait to have a conversation with Wales. And I agree that this conversation has been productive, but at the same time, regardless of the fact that this conversation has been so productive.
Mhm.
Are you saying it's because Wells isn't here, or no? Just to be
Well,
upfront, dude.
I'm saying that it has been productive, but
Mhm.
I'm not a stupid guy, but I can't see a situation where talking to whales would make a lot of things get better, because everyone has already communicated with whales either one-on-one or through different experiences with other people. You know, it. And
The
I think
thing is,
that there's also a point. Let me
in
finish,
my
please.
yeah,
Let me
sure,
finish.
sure, go, go,
Let me
go.
finish. I think that there's a point to be made that throughout all of this, um, and to my knowledge, no one has ever had any negative experience with or had such difficulty with any person besides whales, even if there is communication issues, right? And um, I think it's sort of indicative of some other issues that it needs to get to this point, um, that we're basically like about to leave, you know. But I'll stay um, cautiously optimistic, and I hope that we can reach some sort of conclusion that works for all of us. Because I just got HRO, and I'm not gonna lie, um, it's not fun being promoted. Um, like when I was promoted to VRO, I was fucking stoked, you know.
Mhm.
And as someone that kind of like really enjoys the process and enjoys sort of getting into things, this promotion should have been really great. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I mean, I'm sure you have, and I'm sure Brio has as well. But in War Room, I'm actively trying to make changes, right? From
Mhm.
like the first hour that I
Yep.
was promoted, I was talking about the event stuff, right? So it's like I know that I could have a lot of good to provide to the server, and I think all of us are, and we're really passionate. Um, and I'm really hesitant to step, but it seems like for now there's not really any other option.
I'll say this about uh, Wales. He's not. I agree. He's not a good communicator. He's been here very long time, longer than me. One of the reasons he was promoted is because this hasn't been an issue before, and it's only just now becoming an issue. So when you say this is only a problem with Wales and no one else, it's the way he would see it is it would only be a problem with your group because he's never had this problem with anyone else. I don't know if you ever heard the name Duya thrown around before. He hated Wales and still wanted him to be promoted. I really do think it can be resolved with a discussion. If you guys want to try that, that'd be awesome. If you don't, you do you. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be open to another discussion in the future.
Because I don't know. I don't know what happened with all the other people in the past, but it's always gotten resolved. I don't know. It's worth a shot, in my opinion.
All right, Twilight, do you have a closing piece?
What Darkin asked me, or really us about, and what I responded to in terms of staying was, of course, the HRL promotion. And I did tell him, like, if you can promise a spot, I would probably stay, and I'd like to revise that too. I really wish just that the staff would get more help in promotions. One of the things that I mentioned to Rio, which, to be honest, I'm not sure you really answered, at least not to my criteria, is that it didn't feel like I got a helpful answer on how to become HRL. I got told, the issue that's holding me back, and I got told to work on it, and I tried to work on it, and then I still got passed over. So in my eyes, nothing ever happened to me to get me like
Hold on.
in a better position.
Twilight, we talked about this. You have it wrong. That's not why you weren't passed over because the communication issue wasn't resolved. This was just a matter of we just considered everything. We just considered everyone's, all of the candidates, and we just decided to not include all of the negative stuff. We just chose purely off of activity. You didn't get passed
What
over
did
in
you
the way that
say?
you're thinking.
what did you say Wales's reason that he didn't vote on me was, or didn't vote yes?
Seniority.
Yeah,
At least
and why,
you know
would,
that-
and
that's
why
what I
was
thought.
everybody's negatives passed over exactly?
Because they
we
both had
found that
toxic-
everyone's negatives was equal. Everyone had their own issues to resolve, so it's just something that we could objectively try to go over and say, oh, this person is slightly better than this person, this and that. So we just say, okay, who's the most senior person?
So if that issue had been resolved, the communication issue had been resolved, seniority would not have been a factor. Is that?
I'm not
that's
sure.
what
I
I'm
can't.
saying?
I can't predict that. I'm
It would
not
be a
sure.
completely
I'm not
different
gonna-
debate.
So, yes.
Well,
exactly.
right.
So I can't say
that's
yes or
kind
no.
of what I'm getting at, is that it would be a completely different story.
But we
so.
can't say that. We can't guarantee that you would have been HR. We just.
I
it's a
wouldn't
different
guarantee
debate.
it either, but how about this? It's cited as the reason I wasn't promoted.
Yeah, Darkin
Directly
did
to me,
say-
it's cited
yeah.
to me as that.
Yeah,
So
Darkin
from my
in
understanding,
group
that's
chat
all I
made-
have to go on. That's what you've told me to improve. And like I said, I was like, okay, like, I won't type as much anymore. And I still don't know when is it gonna get. I'm not asking like, hey guys, when are you gonna promote me? But how am I supposed to, like, where's the goal
Can
for
I-
me? Do you know what I mean?
Can I say my
Like,
opinion?
where does anybody get the goal to get to the point where they get promoted?
Twilight, in my opinion, it was very close between you and Nico, and if there's ever an HRL spot in the future, you're the next choice. I don't think there is anything left for you to do. I don't know if Brio and Dark can agree with that, but that's the way I feel about it.
I personally would agree that that's kind of how the debate would go. Yes, I would say that that's where. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an HRL
Yeah.
spot for Shatters in the foreseeable future?
It depends on Brio or Dark enough to say this, but it would probably depend on how much the server grows or if anyone steps. Brio? Question mark?
Because y'all were very hesitant to promote one.
The reason why was because the workload wasn't. It just wasn't. You know, it's like
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. Like, there's a lot of nice little improvements that can be done to the server that just kind of haven't been worked on, at least to my knowledge.
I feel like I
Sorry,
mentioned
my
this.
mom's kind of yelling at me. Is there any closing thing for you to tell me right now before I leave?
I don't think so. Unless anybody has like anything major to add, I think that we've all kind of spoken our piece, and that after this is kind of more so just us talking about more individual stuff.
I don't think there's anything major.
Yeah. So in conclusion, we're all like,
Pods.
at least for now, we're all staying, but like we would like to have a discussion with Wales. And just-
Was Wales busy? He couldn't come to this one?
No, the reason we didn't want whales in this one, because like I didn't quite get into them as much as I would have if I was like just going down the bullet list.
Hold on.
But some of them.
If you need to go, you should just go.
We're probably gonna
Okay.
talk.
All right, take care then. Don't pull up in.
Yeah.
All right.
Goodbye, bro. Yeah, no, we said that we didn't want to include whales in this one because we like this whole talk took like 2.5 hours. And we felt that like because a lot of this just concerns Wales and his conduct and all of that stuff, that if we had Wales here, like you guys had a lot of questions as you are right to, but we felt that if Wales was here, half of it would just be us arguing back and forth with Wales and not getting anywhere, and then this conversation would take like 5 hours.
I understand.
So.
Like, I get it 100%. I think it's hard because I think he should have been here for this conversation, but if he was here, we would have to have the